Egypt is trying to stop the broadcast of an interview that President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi gave to US television network CBS. In the interview with current affairs show 60 Minutes, Sisi says the Egyptian army is working alongside Israel against ISIL fighters in North Sinai. He also denies Egypt is holding tens of thousands of political prisoners.
We don't have political prisoners, nor prisoners of opinion. We are trying to stand against extremists who impose their ideology on the people. Now they are subject to a fair trial, and it may take years, but we have to follow the law.
Mr. President, the organization Human Rights Watch says that there are 60,000 political prisoners that you're holding today as we sit here.
I don't know where they got that figure. I said there are no political prisoners in Egypt. Whenever there is a minority trying to impose their extremist ideology, we have to intervene regardless of their numbers.
Now, despite Sisi's denial, rights groups insist Egypt's jails are filled with political dissidents. Human Rights Watch says political prisoners are routinely subjected to torture and rape while in detention. The group also says hundreds of civilians are being sent to military trials for political dissent. Egypt's most notable political prisoner is former President Mohamed Morsi, who was overthrown by Sisi in a 2013 military coup. For more than 2 years, Al Jazeera journalist Mahmoud Hussein has been under arrest in Egypt. He was detained while on holiday in Cairo and accused of spreading false news, but has never been formally charged. Hussein's imprisonment has been repeatedly extended despite international calls for his release. Sahar Aziz is a professor of law and the director of the Center on Security, Race and Civil Rights at Rutgers University. She joins us from New Orleans. So, Sahar, we're obviously hearing completely contradictory information from Sisi and human rights groups. Explain for us how that's possible.
Well, Sisi's definition of a political prisoner is essentially non-existent, because a political prisoner is someone who is criminalized or prosecuted for their political beliefs. So in Egypt, for example, many of the tens of thousands of political prisoners are in jail because they have allegedly violated the anti-protest law. They have allegedly insulted the judiciary. They have allegedly spread false news, and then they're often accused of violating a very broadly defined anti-terrorism law that includes harming national security as the executive branch defines it. So these tens of thousands of people who are in prison, many of them, though not even all of them, have been charged, and some of them have been convicted. Others are in this years-long pretrial detention where they're not even charged. But the vast majority of them are there because of their political views or the accusation by the state that they are dissidents, effectively.
But, Sahar, if Egypt is denying the very existence of political prisoners, what hopes are there for their release, or a fair trial for that matter?
Well, they're admitting that they're there. They're just not admitting that they're political prisoners. And in fact, in 2014, the foreign ministry admitted that at least 22,000 had been detained, and that was post-massacre at Rabaa Square that occurred in 2013. And at that time, in 2014, the human rights groups thought that there were more like 40,000. So 4 years later, it's likely to be in the 50,000, 60,000 person range. The problem is that the judiciary, there's a lot of questions whether it has been politicized, and that whether there's pressure on some of the judges to convict. There's also serious concerns with the evidentiary process, where defendants are not given the opportunity to bring forth the evidence. And even defense counsel have gone on the record in Egypt saying, I haven't had a chance to defend my client. So the process itself has many flaws, and that's been documented. So, but that's despite the fact that's the second order issue. The issue is, why are they being indicted in the first place? And I just want to note that the vast majority of these detainees are accused of being associated with the Muslim Brotherhood. And what's problematic about that is that this group was criminalized after the president, Mohamed Morsi, who was democratically elected, was deposed, and ultimately, a military coup occurred. And then all of its members, who were very open politically, who participated in nonviolent political activity, became criminalized all of a sudden. And if you were even accused of being a member, you were automatically arrested and detained. So the Egyptian regime has created quite a human rights catastrophe with these tens of thousands of people, and some of whom are also secularists and human rights activists who have nothing to do with the Muslim Brotherhood.
Sahar, we've seen a huge international outcry over the imprisonment of other individuals in various countries. Do you feel there's been a similar level of concern or interest about those detained in Egypt?
Well, we have a number of people that are American citizens, some of whom have been released, like Aya Hijazi, Mohammed Sultan, and then there are those who are still in prison and have been convicted, such as Mustafa Qasim, who was somebody, he lived in New York City, he was there visiting Egypt, and he happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time when the police and security forces were cracking down at Rabaa Square in Nasser City. So you have these individuals who are in prison, and even the Trump administration can't get them out. Mike Pence in January asked Sisi to release Mustafa Qasim, and he's very ill and he's been in solitary confinement, and it was to no avail. You also have Ola al-Qaradawi and Hossein Khalaf, who the only crime that they are accused of is that Ola is the daughter of Sheikh Yusuf Qaradawi, who is a dissident imam. He disagrees with the Egyptian regime. He lives in Qatar. Qatar refuses to deport him. And so the Egyptian regime is retaliating against him by putting his daughter and her husband in solitary confinement for over a year and a half now. And that's just, outright unacceptable and cruel.
Sahar Aziz speaking to us there from New Orleans. Thank you for being with us. The U.S.